let's start, Gordon. Should we talk about how you found your way into the music industry?
Let's talk about that.
Okay, how did it start?
Let's see. Okay, I guess it was, I started hearing records, when I was about 10. And these records like Beatles and Doors and Hendrix, like when it was coming out and stuff. I was going, whoa, music, who knew? This music I heard before that, the stuff we were singing in school about See You in September and all these things my dad was playing. I just thought music's kind of boring. But when I heard these records, even at 10 years old, I was going, what are they saying in these words? And listen to the sounds of those guitars and drums, and look how cool they look. So by the time I was 13, I was playing in bands. I played keyboards, electric organ, and piano. And once I got on stage in front of people and realized that they were all smiling and moving around, I thought, this is the shit. I'm going to stay with this. And I did, and I'm still doing the same thing, that I did when I was 13, just a more sophisticated and worldly variation of the same stuff. Listening to music all the time, playing music as much as I can, recording my own stuff, being a producer now for bands and artists so that they ask me to record them, and that kind of thing.
So you're Seattle native, that's your hometown, right?
I was born in New York, but I grew up in Seattle, Washington.
So what was happening in those two cities kind of like when you were in your formative years?
A lot of fishing in Seattle and building airplanes for Boeing, and the rest of us were like listening to music. And eventually at one point, I realized I want to write songs. But I seemed to always attract these kind of expert guys in my band. Like if I was 13, I would be in the band with the guy who was 13, but he could play Hendrix already. And he'd already written a shoebox full of his own cassettes, And those kind of people, they're always really strict with me. And I was always getting in trouble because if I came in late on beat 3.5, like they'd rip up the music or yell. So I was always around these people that were like experts, but they were kind of mean and antisocial. So I thought, how am I going to write songs if I go to a studio and some engineer guy's looking at me while I'm trying to sing and he's making me feel uncomfortable? So I basically learned how to record so that nobody be watching me while I'm doing, like if I'm whispering in the microphone and making up lyrics or trying to play electric guitar, which I wasn't trained in. I didn't want anybody crossing their hands and going like, you're out of tune, or that's stupid what you're saying. So I just said, I got to learn how to do it myself so that nobody has any comments. And when I'm finished my project, when I'm finished my song, then I'll show people, and then they can tell me their comments, but nobody will stop me. And that's basically how I got from playing music to recording music, was just so that I could make sure nobody had anything to say about what I was doing as I was creating songs and sounds.
And what was that early recording setup? What did that look like?
Oh, it looked like me never having a job and never having any money, like living at my mom's house or different friends' houses. And then I'd kind of borrow that guy's 4-track reel-to-reel and the other friend's Yamaha 8-track mixer and a microphone. And I had a couple synthesizers because I was actually in a really popular band when I was 18. So I was the only kid around that had like an ARP Odyssey and a Selena string ensemble and a Fender Rhodes. So I had all my keyboards and this recording 4-track mixer, and a borrowed Echoplex, and a phase shifter. And with that stuff, I think I spent maybe 8 years making hundreds of songs just because making strange sounds on my synth and then whispering poetry with an echo in one ear and nothing in the other, and then phase shifting everything as I'm bouncing it down to a cassette. So I was doing all these kind of experiments. And in fact, just this week, I released my very first album that I ever recorded. I've had it around for years, but I never thought I should show the public. And I thought, I'm going to really get behind this and show my very first production. And I released this album called Mental Mannequin. That was my band at the time. And I think it's on a Bandcamp, and it's on my Gordotronic website, but it's going to be on streaming services soon. And I've been really enjoying making videos for promoting that music because I've gotten to talk to all my old musicians and get all these photos from the time. And I'm really into that music right now.
We were talking before this about Logic being the first like DAW that you started using in '98. What was it like transitioning from your 4 tracks up and all your instruments stuff to then going to the digital side of things?
So I was talking about the early '80s when I was using 4 tracks and stuff, and then in the '90s in Seattle, we had the most glorious thing happened. Our town went from a fishing village to the most popular music spot in the entire world, thanks to Mudhoney, then Soundgarden, then Nirvana, Pearl Jam, and Alice in Chains, and then hundreds of other bands. But suddenly, every record label moved up from Hollywood to make a Seattle office, and it was incredible. And if you played an instrument or had long hair, you'd walk down the street and people would come tap you on the shoulder and, "Are you in a band?" "Yeah, why?" "Well, I'm from a publishing company. Would you like to go to dinner with me and talk about it?" "Yeah, I want some dinner." Like everybody, they literally chased you down the street. I'm not kidding. I mean, even my band, we got a record deal and a publishing deal, and we went touring, and it was a great, great time. So as I'm going touring, I had already finished my major party phase. So while the rest of my band was like sleeping in the buses and in the hotels because they were just partied out from the night before, I would wake up early in a new town and I'd go thrift shopping for gear. And a vintage synthesizer, great, put it under the bus. Oh, an old guitar, an old phase shifter. So I was collecting equipment and recording now on digital 8-track, Tascam DA88, fantastic invention. And I was using a Sonic ASR10 sampling keyboard, which was the first keyboard that came out where I took my Mini Moog, and if I played a note on my Mini Moog and sampled it and played the sample, I'd sit there and go, wow, that's it, that's really captured it. It was the first time that you could actually sample something and hear it back and it sounded like the thing. So I did a lot of compositions between the 8-track sequencer in my ASR10 and this digital 8-track tape recorder, which ran on Hi8 video cartridges, okay? And everybody told me, "Gordon, computers, Macintosh, Apple, you gotta get into it." And I said, can I swear one time? Okay.
I'll allow it.
I said, "You're fucking kidding me. You're gonna watch TV while you make music? You idiot. Fuck that." I was not gonna watch a TV screen while I played music. I couldn't see how that was gonna work. Then the grunge scene ended, and I had an opportunity to move to New York. And I got involved in a studio, and they had this brand new software called Logic. It's called eMagic was the company that made it, German software, and it's called Logic Pro. And Logic was amazing because if you pushed the number 1 on your keyboard, you'd be in MIDI sequencing and controlling like Kurzweil sequencers and modules and stuff. And if you press 2, you're recording audio with a microphone. Like, whoa! Pro Tools was nowhere near that. In fact, we had Pro Tools cards in the engine of the computer doing the processing so we used the plugins and the conversion process of Pro Tools, but Logic was this miraculous software, and I learned it. And once I saw how much tracks you could stack up and how great it was for MIDI and audio, I became a huge believer in digital audio, and I've kind of stayed there. Occasionally I do tape recording when a band wants it, which is about once every 3 years. A band asks me, like, "Can we go to Abbey Road and record on 24-track tape?" Yes, we can, but mostly people want to work on digital because it's much faster, especially when you're doing a band thing. Just even having to wait for the tape machines to rewind or take the old song that you did, you have to get the mix new every time. It takes like moments, which add up when you use analog compared to call that song up on Logic or Pro Tools and it's there where you left off, just fix something and go on. Okay?
Very cool.